Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life. And today we're going to be reviewing Pixar's latest movie, that of course being Inside Out 2.
There's a part 2?
Yeah, that was my opinion going into this movie as well. I thought that it was just going to be one of those soulless cash grabs that is just made as a sequel for the sake of making a sequel, but then I watch it and like many other Pixar sequels or prequels, it actually feels necessary. It feels like Inside Out 2 is the next chapter in Riley's story, and I really loved it. Now, is this film better than the original? No, not really, but that could also be nostalgia talking, who I think we can all agree is the real villain of this movie.
Remember when we all finally came up to headquarters?
Nostalgia.
That was like 30 seconds ago, nostalgia.
Yeah, those were the days.
But jokes aside, I actually thought that Inside Out 2 was really good and definitely up there in terms of Pixar films. While it does have its problems, they are few and far between, and honestly, this film is just really good and you actually have to go and see it for yourself, because I'm afraid to say it, but there is a lot to unpack with this movie, and I mean a lot. And for those of you who are thinking, oh, this movie's for kids, it's not gonna be that good, I hate to say it, but this movie is way better when you're watching it as an adult, and even more so as a teenager, because this is a movie about teenagers, and we go inside the mind of Riley, who at this point is about to enter teenagehood. Now, I gotta say that there's a lot of great stuff going into this movie, including the animation, which is an upgrade from the first movie, definitely, and I also really enjoyed the voice acting, and I especially loved all of the new voice actors that they got to play the new emotions. I also really enjoyed the voice actors they got to replace the voice actors who chose not to return. Yeah, I bet you didn't know this, but again, Riley ended up getting her actress replaced because in the first movie she's a kid, in this movie she's a teenager, but it's a 9-year gap, so by now her actress has probably grown up into an adult and thus can't play Riley anymore, so on to bringing in a brand new actress. And we also have Fear and Disgust, whose voice actors chose not to return for this movie, and I hate to say it, but I actually love their new voices. In fact, dare I say it, Tony Hale does a way better job as Fear than Bill Hader ever did. And of course, who could forget the music, which I gotta say is a real step up in that department from the original movie. So, honestly, everything about this movie is better, including its story. While in the original movie, it's mostly about the emotions getting trapped in the mind and they have to make their way back to headquarters, in this one, there's actually a reason for them to remain in the back of the mind. But with that in mind, there's just so much going on in this movie that, like, you literally have to go and see it in order to get the most out of it because, well, there's just no way I can talk about it in this review and do it justice. So go ahead, click off this video and go watch it for yourself. But if you really want to stick around, or if you just don't plan to see it and want to know the story, well, I'm about to dive into that. So the story is that Riley is about to hit puberty, and with puberty comes new emotions, including anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and of course, ennui.
On what?
It's what you would call the boredom.
Now, throughout the beginning of the movie, we see that Joy has actually warmed up to the idea of letting the emotions take over the console, and we see that the wall of memories is filled with colorful orbs rather than just one specific color. The emotions are working together, and while it's still mostly joy, there's a hint of every single emotion being present. And like how the core memories are able to create Riley's personality, there's also a bunch of lesser memories that come down to form Riley's personal beliefs, the stuff that makes Riley Riley, and it separates her from her emotions and prevents her emotions from taking over. However, the emotions do tend to control Riley's beliefs by tossing away the bad memories, like embarrassing moments in her life, but they do tend to bring down specific memories that they also think will end up helping her mature into a better person, which is really nice. But then Riley hits puberty and the new emotions come in, and with them comes anxiety. And anxiety has been waiting for a whopping 13 years for her chance to take over Riley. Not really so she can control Riley, but more so she can mold Riley into the perfect Riley. So the old emotions, especially joy, tend to split with the new emotions. While the old emotions are concerned with letting Riley be Riley and forming her to be a good person, anxiety just wants to create a mold of Riley that is the perfect person to deal with any problems whatsoever in the future. But of course, with anxiety, that literally just means worrying about every single thing that can go wrong and having absolutely no time for any other emotion. Meanwhile, in the outside world, Riley is actually a star hockey player and is about to enter high school alongside her new friends. And the three of them all go to hockey camp, but during the car ride, it's revealed that her friends from middle school are actually about to go to a completely different high school than Riley, which means that Riley is going to be alone. So the old emotions are concerned with letting Riley have 3 joyous days with her old friends, while anxiety is concerned with trying to make it so Riley has new friends so that she can actually survive high school. So she forces Riley to ditch her old friends and makes friends with a senior who happens to be an extremely popular hockey player that Riley looks up to as a role model named Val. But then a new problem arises. When anxiety tries to get Riley to go to these new friends, Riley just doesn't. It turns out that Riley has formed a bunch of core beliefs in her system that make her a good friend, and she doesn't want to ditch her old friends, even if it means that she will be alone in high school. So Riley is split in 2 ways. Anxiety is trying to force her to ditch her friends, while Riley is trying to actually not ditch her friends. And then anxiety just decides to take completely over by ripping out Riley's sense of self and tossing it to the back of the mind, which is, again, where all of the bad memories were sent. And this is extremely bad in the eyes of the old emotions because they're actually trying to help Riley be Riley, and she literally just ripped out Riley's entire being. But when they fight back, the new emotions actually suppress the old emotions by bottling them up and sentencing them to the back of the mind.
You can't just bottle us up!
We are suppressed emotions!
Where they are locked in a secret safe where Riley keeps all of her deepest, darkest secrets, including a couple of really interesting characters. Among them is Pouchy, which is basically a preschool series that Riley used to watch as a kid, and her secret is that she still loves the show to this day. But she also has a secret crush on a video game character named Lance Slashblade, who happens to be a really weak character, but he still looks extremely hot. At least according to my sisters, who I ended up watching the movie with. And I gotta say that I actually loved their animations, which is like 2D hand-drawn animation for Pouchy, and then pixelated, blocky, and slow-moving, not really accurate pixelated character of Lance Slashblade, which I really loved. I love that they weren't just computer animated, I love that they tried to do their own thing. But then there's also the third secret, which is her really big and embarrassing secret that does not want to come out. But thankfully, that secret actually helps the emotions escape. And then the emotions actually try to go up to headquarters when Joy says, wait, Riley's not going to be at headquarters. Riley's at the back of the mind because that's where her sense of self was tossed. So they end up going on a journey to the back of the mind, except for Sadness, who ends up going to headquarters so that she can actually call them back. And I absolutely loved the scenes with Sadness and Embarrassment forming a bond. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that they were actually starting to fall in love with each other. But again, they're like emotions inside the same mind, so it'd be kind of weird, but not outside of the realm of possibility. So the old emotions are trying to get to the back of the mind, which is really hard because the mind has changed thanks to puberty, and we even see how much Imagination Land from the first movie has actually changed, including how anxiety has literally taken over Dream Productions, making it so that Riley only dreams about bad futures and forcing her to worry about the future. So Joy tries to fight back and makes it so that Riley actually has some good dreams. And when Joy actually succeeds in this fight, anxiety kind of panics and makes it so that Riley starts to build a brand new sense of self, one that is so worried and concerned about the future that it actually becomes really devastating, which I kind of both liked and hated. See, while anxiety and the new emotions are working together to build this new Riley, anxiety is literally making it so that all of the new memories are anxiety. She's literally just making it so that only the orange orbs are going into Riley's sense of self. All of the other colors, they're not doing that, which is really bad because that's actually what Joy was doing. Sure, while she tried to put some happy memories in there, she also tried to mix it up with some of the other emotions as well. Joy was happy sharing a slice of the pie because she realized that every emotion of Riley has a purpose, unlike anxiety, who is literally just give her anxiety all the time, no matter what. So anxiety forces a brainstorm session, which makes it so that a bunch of ideas form, including a big one where Riley actually tries to sneak into the coach's office so that she can see exactly what coach thinks of her and whether or not she made the high school hockey team. And unfortunately, when Sadness tries to put a stop to this, she gets caught and captured. And then Riley actually looks at the notebook, and when she flips to her page, she sees the words, "Not ready yet." So anxiety grabs this new memory, takes it down to Riley's beliefs section, adds it to the collection, and thus forms her brand new sense of self. Anxiety has been trying to build this sense of self to have Riley always be prepared for the future, but in the end, all that comes out is, "I'm not good enough." For the first time ever, anxiety actually realizes that there is a problem with what she's doing, but still she persists onwards. Then the old emotions actually manage to track down Riley's sense of self at the back of the mind, and they call Sadness to have them recall them through the tube, at which point when Sadness tries to escape thanks to embarrassment and take over the console to call them back, anxiety literally destroys the recall tube, making it so that the old emotions can't come back to Riley's mind with Riley's old sense of self. And I absolutely loved this scene because it was like a callback to the first movie. In the original, when Joy was in the memory dump, she found solace by looking through all of the memories and rewinding them to the point where they literally transferred over to old memories. But in this case, when she rewinds, there's nothing there. It's all bad memories. There's no hope whatsoever. But then Joy insists that Riley will never be Riley as long as her sense of self is trapped in the back of the mind. So they decide to have an avalanche be caused that makes it so that all of the bad memories will go down to the bottom of Riley's mind, where they will actually become part of her sense of beliefs, at which point the old emotions can then travel up the tube from the sense of belief part right up to headquarters. And when they get there, they find that anxiety has literally taken over Riley's mind to the point where even anxiety can't stop herself. In the real world, during a hockey scrimmage, Riley is trying to show off her skills at the expense of the other players, and she even injures one of her best friends. And when anxiety sees this, she literally has a panic attack, and that causes Riley to have a panic attack. And that's when the emotions, old and new, realize that anxiety is not doing any good for Riley, so they try to rip out Riley's new sense of self made completely of anxiety orbs. But Riley's anxiety attack is making it impossible to do that, so Joy goes over to Anxiety and tries to get her to let go of the console, but that's when they realize that Anxiety literally can't let go of the console. She's having a panic attack of her own. And that's when Joy literally tries to reason with Anxiety, calm her down, and tries to make her let go of the console. And when she does let go, Joy grabs Anxiety and shoves her away. Then they grab Riley's new sense of self and rip it out, then replace it with her old sense of self. But even then, Riley's panic attack doesn't stop. And that's when Anxiety apologizes, realizing that she should never have tried to make Riley into her own image. And that's when Joy realizes that even though they've been doing a good job with it, they have been doing pretty much the same thing. They've been choosing what core beliefs are forged as part of Riley's sense of self, making it so that only the good memories are part of that belief system. So Joy actually rips out the old sense of self and allows Riley to create a brand new sense of self, one that's made of both good and bad memories, especially after that whole bad memory avalanche that they caused to get back to headquarters. And when that happens, Riley actually calms down and takes deep breaths, finally able to actually be herself and not controlled by any of her emotions. So on her own, without any emotional support, she ends up apologizing to her friends who she's been treating like jerks this entire hockey camp. And once that happens, she actually wants to feel joy after she's been forgiven. So she literally calls out to Joy. And for some reason, I actually thought that Joy was about to die, but no, it turns out that she was just calling out to Joy. And thus, Joy actually takes control of the console and tells the other emotions what to do, making it so that Riley plays a good game of hockey, but all the while making sure that for the first time ever, Riley actually has fun at hockey camp. And then when she goes back to home and actually goes to her first day of high school and plays the tryout, she waits for the signal. And I love what they do here with Anxiety, where she's so anxious about whether or not they make the team. But then Joy calms her down and says, let's not worry about things we can't control. Let's worry about things we can. So Anxiety, instead of worrying about whether or not the coach likes them, decides to instead worry about whether or not Riley studies for her math test tomorrow, which is really good. And then the movie ends with Riley getting a text from Coach. And unfortunately, we don't actually see what the answer is, whether she makes the team or not. But I do believe that she does, because she does smile in the mirror of her locker, which is really nice. Oh, and then there's an end credit scene where the deep dark secret actually comes out and reveals that as a kid, Riley burned a hole in the carpet. So that's the end of the movie. Overall, it was a really great movie that was really funny and definitely had a unique concept. And I love the way that it portrayed anxiety as an emotion that can take over, but at the same time, it needs to not be allowed to take over. However, there is just one problem. Unlike in the original movie where they said that sadness was an important emotion because it expresses that you're not okay and you need help, in this one, they don't really say why people need anxiety. It's literally just a fear giver that is like trying to take over, and it's like so weird that they don't actually go into detail of why anxiety can be important. And even at the end, when they tease that anxiety tries to worry about things that they can't control, but they also are helpful because they worry about things that you can control, it still doesn't really help. Like, what even is the purpose of anxiety versus fear, who is just already keeping Riley safe and on her toes? But again, overall, this movie was really good and definitely worth watching, especially in a movie theater. But what did you guys think? Make sure to leave some of your thoughts down below in the comments section, and make sure that you also like and subscribe so that you can keep up to date on all things DreamWorks, as this is a DreamWorks focused channel. With that in mind, I hope that you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.
Riley, how was camp?
It's the apocalypse!
It was good.
She goes away for 3 days and all we get is good?
She goes away for 3 days and all we get is good?
Yeah, sounds right.
Asked and answered.
Nice.
Back to the game.
Game time.
Sorry.